TopMedTalk.
Hello and welcome to TopMedTalk and our series of podcasts here from IFAD 2018 in Amsterdam. And we are now joined by the core team of the social media group here at IFAD, where we will be discussing social media's role in IFAD, but also in other conferences internationally, and also the role of social media going forward. So I'm joined by David Lyness, who's an intensivist and anaesthetist from Belfast, from Segun Olusanyam, who's an intensivist from London, and also Jamie Strachan, who is an anaesthetist and intensivist from Oxford, but also from the Royal College of Anaesthetists. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
David, if I could start with you. You are leading the social media team here at IFAD. Can you tell us a bit about when you and the social media team got involved with IFAD and how things have changed since that implementation?
Yeah, so I think the social media at IFAD has really been the brainchild of, well, if you forget to sort of double put in there, of Manu Malbrain. It is his brainchild.
Nice.
He really sort of was very interested in social media and got a lot of us together over the past couple of years to get involved in this sort of extended social media team here. So really we all met. This is kind of our 1 year anniversary of IFAD social media team, and being involved from that side of things, and that's really sort of brought us to a lot of different conferences, a lot of different things. All of us were sort of chosen to be in this because we had existing social media experience. That was the key. We all did social media projects on our own, so whenever we came together, sort of, to be a better, team, the sum of our component parts. So I run propathology.com. Other people really started together looking at different ways how we could utilise our talents and how to utilise our existing projects and really sort of get together and sort of do something bigger. And that's something we have continued to look at every year. So this year there's the biggest social media team we've ever had, with sort of 15, 16 of us. Yeah. And I suppose the idea is to really diversify our output and what we're actually doing. So infographics, podcasts is where you guys are here, and with Jonathan Downham, who's doing sort of video streams of podcasts, seeing what works for different people, because the demographic of social media audience out there is so vast from so many countries in the world that they all want different things. Podcasts are very popular among some groups of people. They're particularly popular in emergency medicine. They're getting even more popular in critical care. Infographics are just sort of ubiquitously popular because you can download them. People are using material that is generated on Twitter for CPD more and more and more, and as a reference guide for a lot of information, because whenever I do all my trolls of trials on PubMed and all those things, there's thousands and thousands of trials, so to be able to synthesize it without it being a systematic review or something like that, just to show calibre of evidence, to show what we're talking about, and then distill it into a visual abstract is actually quite rewarding work, because people get in touch with you from all over the world, as is evidenced here, and really start discussions about stuff that really matters in intensive care. Most of the time it's like, we don't really know what we're doing, this evidence is rubbish or this is good, and actually sort of...
But that's as important to get out there.
But that's so important, and that's why, there's not really much point in talking about negative trials. There's not much point in talking about these, things that don't really matter. We need to focus on the things that do matter, and one of the good things about social media is... making the playing field equitable to everyone getting involved in a conversation, so that a realm that was dominated by academics for so long and nobody really was getting involved in the discussions is now open to absolutely everyone to talk. So somebody who's sitting, like this morning, in Brazil is able to go, well, actually, this doesn't make a difference in my unit, and this is not what happens here. We don't have that machine there, or whatever, and that's really important to hear those global perspectives.
Yeah, Segun, do you think that's one of the primary roles then that social media has, particularly for IFAD, is that getting everyone involved? Because it's been an enormous success. Manu was talking about the several million impressions that have been going related to IFAD on Twitter, and as David mentioned, people from Brazil, around the world, all kind of clocking in this conference. Is that's the big drive, really? Would you say, for what you guys are wanting to achieve, to get everyone involved in the conversation?
Yeah, social media has so much to play. So first of all, there's the actual ongoing conversation at the conference right now, and it's fantastic to be able to draw in so many different inputs, as David's exactly said, from all around the world, having people to be able to comment in real time on things that they're hearing live, that Manu's saying, that Monty's saying. That's incredible. Second thing is it opens the door for people who couldn't make it here, so some of the people who've authored these trials, some of the people who are conducting future trials, to also be able to comment, to add their insights. And that completely changes the game and changes the way we are absorbing information, because not only are we kind of hearing, oh, this is what we did yesterday and these are the results now, we're hearing this is what we did yesterday, and somebody from, Brazil or wherever is saying, actually, you know what, we are doing exactly this and we're doing this in the future and we'll have the results for you next week. And that's happening in real time. We're also having contemporaneous peer review, and that's an incredibly powerful tool. So
it's very important.
It's completely changed again. So you can't. It's very difficult now to stand up in a conference that's covered by social media and be able to say something that's completely wrong, because you will get called out, and you will get called out very quickly with a whole bunch of references. Yeah. So now it means that everybody has to be at the absolute top of their game and absolutely, completely check their references, and also have a degree of humility and be willing to accept when you're wrong and when you've got data wrong and willing to change.
I've not really thought about that. Maybe I can bring you in, Jimmy, as well with that. That obviously, I initially kind of always thought of social media as the advantage for the participants, so to speak, but actually the effect it has on the speakers.
Yeah.
In terms of,
definitely.
I'm not really,
Yeah, so if nothing else, it checks whether a speaker is getting their message across by the person writing a tweet or making an infographic about a talk. So at a conference, it is definitely testing understanding and their effectiveness as a speaker. So that's good. But it's also, checking what they're saying is commensurate with what other people think or not. And if not, then that's when it's interesting. And the conversations that start maybe during a conference or a presentation carry on for days, weeks, months, years afterwards, and actually that's one of the great things about the social media team is, and I know Cian McDermott, who's an emergency physician from Ireland, sat next to me, would agree with me, but we form kind of these personal learning networks and these little nodes between each other and learn from each other's specialty and each other's sort of areas of interest in social media, but also in medicine. So I think there's loads of benefits, and this is medicine. I can't provide you with evidence, but it feels like the right thing to do, and it feels like we're doing something worthwhile, and I think that's why we enjoy doing it.
Do you think? Because it's still very much it's an evolutionary process. This is a new game for conferences as a whole. And it's been a great success by all standards, as far as I'm concerned, from what you guys have done. Where do you think it's going? Are we at are we at where we're going to be, or is it just it's a trial and error process, or how do you think it's going to develop?
I think because it's an area that is so I think it's a very independent area as it is at the moment. I think it will obviously continue to develop, but we're nowhere near where we're going to be. The future of, social media and social media teams are very different things depending on what conference you go to. For example, you guys do very different things to us, you do very different things to me, and everyone has a part to play in that. So actually the good thing about social media is it democratizes like medical education amongst everyone, and there's so many ways of actually getting your messages across. So there will be different teams. There will be TopMedTalk. There will be different people who do different things, such as the infographics. And I think the way that we're moving, we've already had a SMAC culture. And Cian McDermott, who is, as Jamie said, was here beside us, has been part of the organising committee for SMAC for many years, which unfortunately is having its last conference next year. Isn't that right? Okay. And so we've seen a sort of social media advancing critical care concept having a conference, particularly sort of on the emergency medicine side of things. I think we are developing in critical care to maybe lead us towards something that is more social media centric than just solely academic focus, where the people go around on a circuit tour around the world and talk about the same things again and again and again.
Well, the social media becomes the focus
Well, the delivery of it is via social media.
Okay, yeah.
The content needs to be, diversified. It cannot just be social media clinicians, doing the content. That's not really what we're trying to say. It's just, utilising different people who maybe traditionally wouldn't be the top speaker at a conference because they don't have, their MD. They don't have 20,000 research publications. They're not funded by X, Y, and Z. We need to, again, democratise education and have people who don't normally do things. People who are, for example, nurses giving a talk about, critical care at a main critical care conference, a fluid nurse coming in doing that, different healthcare professionals. This is where it's going. This is the way it is going, and embrace it or, not.
Yeah, I can see you wanting to. Feel free to chip in. We've got a few people around the table. Introduce yourself if you want to say something.
Cian McDermott here. I'm an emergency physician from Dublin, and I'm part of the organising committee for SMAC, and I've observed what's been happening over the last couple of years in terms of social media and how it evolves and how it develops. I think it will evolve with technology. I see lots of technology here today, mobile devices for sharing audio, video. I think that'll have a big part to play. I think the platforms that we use, whether it's Twitter, that it seems to be on Twitter now, but will it always remain there? I'm not so sure that that'll be the case. It might migrate to platforms like Snapchat. Well, I don't know how to do that, but Instagram, something like that.
Things, yes.
Something like that. And the big message, and we've talked about this before, personal learning networks. We've kind of touched on that already, but cutting the knowledge translation gap. That's what the key of social media is about. It's bringing people to the table that might have written a paper a week ago or a month ago, and having a live debate with people, other people online on Twitter, so that they can talk about pros and cons of that paper, or doing a podcast or a vodcast about that paper and dissecting it, like we've seen done with some of the shock ED, some of the more controversial trials, and we've done that a couple of times. So it will develop. People will do different things, and other people will take their own slant on that. So it's fascinating. I don't think we're not at the top of the mountain. We've lots of things.
There's lots of progress to be made. Well, we're running out of time because we've got the next session heading up. But I wouldn't mind asking all of you what from your experience so far with IFAD, what are you planning, if anything, to change for next year, or what are you looking forward to potentially implementing in the future? A nice short question for you to finish off.
That is I think, continuing with our investment in different sort of platforms of technology to get stuff out here. This is the first year of a bigger pilot. We had the first pilot last year of a smaller social media team, but if it was so for example, different IFADs, different years have different conferences. Last year it was 3 days, this year it's been 1 day, and then a workshop day. So I think maybe diversification onto different platforms. We've used the Who've app very successfully, so actually maybe sort of seeing what we can do with those new technologies to try to get an even bigger audience on social media and retain them.
Segun?
So what I would like to see is the social media team now forming the gap between what's been traditionally a massive separation between science and mainstream media. We form that link. So, for instance, you look at Apple. Apple announces their new iPhone. It's covered by a huge number of tech outlets, etc., etc., etc. The tech outlets, the material that they essentially provide as this kind of social media network, then filters its way into mainstream media, who then publish, this is the new iPhone, this is what it has, blah, 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 blah. There is no reason why that can't happen in science. So you want to reach a phase where... So it's interesting. So one of the people who actually did this was Paul Merrick. Paul Merrick completely circumvented the classical scientific way of doing stuff by essentially using social media to get the idea of vitamin C out. And that's why that's one of the reasons why it's so controversial.
Yeah.
Because he used guys like Scott Weingart to get message that vitamin C was... And that's why it's so popular, despite the fact that it's a tiny paper, while something like Eolia gets published in the New England Journal of Medicine and nobody's read it.
Yeah, nobody reads.
So that's what you want. That's what I think it's going. That social media teams will form that gap, will bridge that gap, and you'll end up seeing conferences, big conferences like this, actually getting features in mainstream news because they have a social media team that translates it all and makes it accessible for mainstream media to be able to write about.
I'd say that I hope that some of the messages around presentation and knowledge translation are getting through, and that I've seen a change from last year already around, and something Ross Fisher's talking a bit about tomorrow, about the way that people present and how that can actually change whether or not they're effective in getting their information across. And I think that's changing. I think hopefully that will start to be better.
Fabulous. Well, thanks, guys, very much for joining us. I know you've been very busy today, so I do appreciate your time. Obviously, you can catch the live streams and all the details about the social media supplementary stuff on the IFAD website. But for now, thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back later. Thank you.
TopMedTalk.